What's happening, everyone? D here, D Booma San on January 9th, 2025. I just got done watching the session that I had with this gentleman that you'll learn about here shortly. He has titled this An Open Dialogue on Q between D Booma San and JRM2024SS. We had quite the session yesterday, and I've been in communication with this gentleman we approximated about 6 months, and he's been sharing stuff with me. I finally locked him in to do a recorded part one for this series that we're going to be working on. It's going to be an ongoing series on Q. This man was on the boards before Q became Q, or like before the boards became what is known as the Q boards. You'll learn more as we go. This is going to be an ongoing series, and just know that there was aspects of this where maybe some of the wording on the screen is a little blurry. I'm going to try to improve that, keeping things in mind what we learned from this first session. It was the first time using, I think it's called Google Meet. I'm used to Zoom, and I'm getting used to some of these other platforms, but this was the first time I've been on that. And so things will improve as we go. But what you'll need to know is that this gentleman has a ton of information, and it even includes who he really thinks is 107, and you get just a taste of that in this one. So know that we'll do a solo episode or some work on that to expose who he believes that 107 really is, or one of the aliases, or one of the past names that he was carrying, or however it works, who he really is. You know, Wayne Willits, 107, and then the name that he proposes as who he believes that Juan really is. That'll come in a separate episode. This is a little bit longer because there's just so much information, and please be patient. There are names that you might not recognize. I certainly didn't, but as this continues forward and he shows the documented proof, the screenshots, the various ways that he came to some of his conclusions, hopefully it'll make more sense, and then we'll get from the community some more questions and some more feedback to know what needs to be clarified as we go forward. But I did want to say that the following presentation was edited by JRM, and therefore I'm not going to touch any of that. I'm going to allow him the creative ability to express himself the way that he wishes to be expressed. I'm going to just be a host or a facilitator of this information. I'll share this both on the Rumble and on the Substack so that they can get out there, and we'll get this series kickstarted and go from there. There is some names that are dropped in this that I think eventually people are going to have some explaining to do. This is more of like the real Q boards versus what the fake Q psyops or QAnon psyops. There's many ways to slice this. This is more of the reality of what Q really was in the beginning and the players involved. And there's some players out there that are still podcasting and still in the truther movement and alternative media that probably are going to have some explaining to do, because you've never come clean on what was really going on with the Q boards and the things that were taking place behind the scenes. JRM is going to try to help clear some of that up, even though it's so much information to take in. I just want everybody to be patient and give your feedback and your questions and comments down below. We'll be providing more proofs as this goes forward, but this will be an open dialogue on Q between D Booma San and JRM2024SS part one. And if there was ever a time to say this that's been thrown around as far as like the Q movement goes, we'll say buckle up and enjoy the show. Done with this, you'll send the recording to me.
Perfect. Plan? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let's start wherever you want to start.
All right. Well, I'm not really an interviewer, so we're going to have a conversation, but I'll ask you some questions to spark this.
Yeah.
But I have one. So this is JRM, Super Soldier, we'll say, just for a little bit of fun. But he's been in contact with me. It's been a little while. You've been trying to get my attention for a little while, JRM.
Of course.
But I want to know, I mean, first of all, I mean, I guess tell people a little bit of something about you. And then two, why did you decide to pester me and get me this information?
Okay. So I have been following the Q drops from almost day one or even before, because
Right.
lots of people don't know that Q was posting as an anon for almost 28 days before he claimed the moniker of Q. And around about that time, there were some books that were getting published or that were already published. One of the books was called The Book of Q, written by some Italian writers named the Wu Ming writers. So I looked into it and I saw the messaging in that particular book where their hero was a guy named Q who was working for the Highness or the Vatican or the Kingdom of England or something like that. And he would do espionage work, in Germany and stuff. And the messaging system was almost the same. So they borrowed this Q methodology. Then it also went into many other cults like the James Bond Q and stuff. So I started following it closely. So the first major post that I looked at was the connection between John F. Kennedy Jr. and Trump being the reason as the beginning of their operation, which started in 1999, because Kennedy Jr. died that time in a plane crash on the Martha's Vineyard beaches or something like that. So there were lots of people who were saying, no, John F. Kennedy Jr. is actually alive. He fudged his death and he is Q. Especially Liz Crokin was the first person to start elaborately pushing the narrative that John F. Kennedy Jr. is actually Q.
Right.
Okay, so it was a big problem. So I had a Coast Guard person who was active at the time in DC. We were working on some projects together, so he asked me what do you want me to find out. I said there are a couple of things I want to find out. So when the Q uh, Save the World video came out with Trump and Q, there was a compilation video by somebody. There was a
Yeah, I
narrative.
think it went by Joe M.
Yeah, Joab.
Okay.
So the narration voice actually eerily matched with the voice of one of the Coast Guard guys who was reporting on the death on John F. Kennedy Jr.'s accident day.
But you actually believe that was legit, that he died that day.
Yeah, I tried to go the other route that he's probably alive. I asked around and people came back and said, that's stupid. They said, it's absolute nonsense. He did die.
Gotcha.
He
Yeah,
did die.
we're gonna attempt to cut down on like you're gonna be considered. People are gonna call you a deep state shill. They're gonna attack me for this
Yeah, I know.
interview that we're gonna release. I don't even give a crap. I've been getting attacked like crazy because I'm trying to
Right.
cut down on the misinformation.
That part I already know. I've asked some very solid people, not some bogus people, but
Yeah,
they
and then
came back and they said, no,
because this
no.
is the beginning, JR, just let me say, like, we've been talking for hours now. You've given me a lot of backstory. And
Okay.
so we didn't just jump on here and then just
No,
start
we
talking.
didn't.
He's been sharing things with me for the last few, like, 3-4 hours or something like that.
Right.
And so then we decided we're going to do a recording and we're going to share it on. There's certain things that we're not going to share right now, but we'll get feedback from all of you of what you think of this. But this is like bombshell stuff. Like, JR does not believe that the original Q person posting as Q will ever post again. And then we're going to get into some of the players that were involved on the Q boards or the 4chan, 8chan, and those kinds of things, because JR was there to witness that. And then we're going to, get into how some of these conspiracies and various psyops have where they kind of birthed. And now we're, talking about one of the big ones in this Q movement has been that JFK Jr. is still alive and he's helping to get retribution for his father's death.
Mm-hmm.
And from all you can tell, that's JFK Jr., whoever that was in that plane crash, is actually dead.
Yeah. So when I asked around, the gentleman who went and looked at the things,
The crash.
Yeah, they said there's no record of a recovered body or anything,
Okay.
but we know for sure that the person is dead. Whatever remains they could find, they cremated it. And there is no way you will ever hear from anybody sensible on either side of the aisle, Republican or Libertarian or Democrat, who would say that JFK Jr. actually survived. He went through some plastic surgery and he's our RFK Jr. and all that blah, blah, blah. Touching the nose video of RFK doesn't prove anything, right?
Right.
So likewise, there are lots of people who would say, no, you don't know, you're not in the know, you don't have the clearance to know. There are people like that Straight guy, David Straight, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He said that
David Strait,
I
David
flew the helicopter with JFK Jr., who is the current vice president, with Don Jr. Complete nonsense. Never
David
happened.
Lester Strait, I think is his
Yeah,
name.
Lester Straight. Yeah, that's
Yep.
right. I don't believe all those people have any information. They don't even have any access. They can't get near the president. I don't believe that this is true. What was mind boggling and what was actually looking like real was when they posted stories about Sidley Austin or Perkins Coie and Jim Jordan or Sarah Carter going on Sean Hannity's show, and Q would post about a Twitter link. And then he would also go ahead and post a link for people to download the book about the CIA and Fritz Springmeier, the 13 royal bloodlines. So why would you post that kind of link if he was military? He would not do that. So lots of questions came along at that time, but they were quite authentic. This is all until the 25th of December or 24th of December 2017, when it was all happening on 4chan. The moment it moved to 8chan, then finally to 8kun, was all destroyed. Every single intelligent person who could somehow start posting, and all they were caring about was there was some form of continuity from what was already posted on the keyboard and then what was happening in real life. Then came the last week of 2020 election, when there were some chronological events that were posted right up to the point where the Cheyenne Mountains visit by Mike Pence was to happen. Until that point, everything was correct. Then somebody else came on the keyboard and said there's no step 5 or something like that. So I realized that the intelligence people were also allowing this thing to continue because of monetization factor. Some people were making tons of money. Hollywood was playing into it. Already scripts were being written. There was Q Into the Storm that came along. The guy, whatever his name was, Cullen Hoback, he tried to prove to the world that Ron Watkins was Q. Was absolute nonsense. Because Ron Watkins was never in the picture until much later into the story.
Okay.
Because of one guy from South Africa, Baruch the scribe. If you challenge these people, you would immediately be called a pedophile. That's how bad it was. So there was another guy named Kelly, Stephen D. Kelly or something.
Stephen D. Is he the guy that's talking about the Getty now?
Getty. It's always about Getty.
He was a CIA contractor or something like that. Like contract, I don't know. Like I've seen some of his story and people point to him. He's out there screaming about Ali Carter not being legit and some of these people that Emma Catherine of the Imagination podcast.
Yeah,
I haven't been able to take him seriously because of how aggressive he is and his the way that he approaches these things. It's ridiculous. So it makes sense what you're saying here. Finish this up, and then I want to rewind people like some of the conversation.
So why I didn't believe in that guy was when he came suddenly upon the scene and he took over the Q community and he said, "I'm the new admin for the Q group, and if anybody's anti-Q, they are pedophiles." If you don't believe
Stephen Kelly,
this is Stephen Kelly. So
wow,
he lost his credibility immediately with me, right?
Okay, this
so
is good.
This happened. Then there were others who would constantly be challenged. The first guy who actually broke away from the Q following was an ardent follower of Q named Isaac Green, anti-school. He received an email from Q one day Then he found out,
Email. Wait,
yeah,
an email from Q?
right. So,
How would you know it was from Q?
well, because they had some kind of a key phrase, which was like a prelude to the email ID, and it would end with 17 or with Q,
Okay.
and the subject matter would say, "I'm talking to you because of you are a follower of Q board, and this is what I want you to do." And the guy went back and did a little bit of reverse engineering. Very intelligent guy. And he came back and he said, "I don't believe in Q anymore. It's bogus because they tried to con me with this thing." And there ended the story. He moved away from that movement completely. The second guy who started calling out Q board was Unirock TV, who started connecting the Fifth Avenue purchase of the towers, the 666 building, and Jared Kushner.
Right.
And then he
What was the
got
name? What was the name of this person? Or
Unirock TV.
Unirock TV.
Yeah, that
Can you
was his
spell that out?
channel. That was his YouTube channel, and he had a big following. He was quite a
Unirock.
large subscribers number. So
Okay.
he and Defango got into it. Then Defango started pushing the narrative that Thomas Schoenberger was actually the Q guy.
Okay. And
Schoenberger
so,
was the music composer. So
okay.
because he was a great pianist and he could understand musical codes, and he wrote the codes for Cicada 3301, and he, like started saying that Defango said that I am the person who mooted this idea that we can create something called Q, and we can make money and we can make it very big as a movement. The Great Awakening started. Then I also went back and checked with a couple more movements. One was in 2008 and one was in 2012 on About Top Secret. That was the blog site. And there was another blog site I'm forgetting. So there was a guy named Wes Penray who used to post
Yeah.
very elaborate things about holographic universes. And there was a guy named Martin Bosley who had some military background, and he would talk about NIMSA and all those things. So he also came across as very close to being Q. Then there was Steve Pachanik on Alex Jones's show. Corsi, they started taking over the Q board because around about 2017 Christmas Eve, Alex Jones suddenly came out and started making emergency videos saying that Trump is under threat and he's going to be assassinated, blah, 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 because he was losing viewership in thousands and millions because
because Q was
people were following Q. So until what point I think Q was accurate and he was doing a good job was when they were following the legitimate Senate victory, 47-53 or 57-43, whatever.
How did he call that? How did Q call that? I think he posted before that happened, right?
I feel that there are apps you can create with algorithms with which you can predict a future event within a short time, like astrologers do, right? You go by planetary forces and you say this combination. If you put tea leaves and milk and sugar or honey and water and boil it, you get a cup of chai or tea. Same way, you could predict certain events to a certain limited, flow of future. You cannot say 7 years down the line this is going to happen. Like, for instance, now lots of gamers and other younger generation people have started to look into the Weekend's posts and thinking that he also made posts like nothing is random in 2012 on his Instagram or on his Facebook post or things like that. So he also started posting about a person called Q, and it turns out it was Quincy Jones, who was a big producer who died recently. So they used to call him Q. Lots of people in the Q movement thought it's connected to Michael Jackson because lots of Hollywood expose was happening through Q. So they thought, okay, it's Michael Jackson who is doing it. He's fudged his own death and he's living somewhere and he's doing it. And he's a close friend of Trump because Trump loved him. And,
Right.
Lots of conjecturing happened there.
There's been the JFK Jr. that we've covered, Michael Jackson. People have also speculated that JFK himself was still alive, that somebody else was.
That's the most ridiculous nonsense, like that Pascal Najadi guy from Switzerland was saying. So
yeah,
everybody becomes a time traveler so easily. First off, I don't believe time travel works that way. Time travel works the best way in dream world because you don't have a sense of time.
Sure.
When you have an actual physical sense of time, there's a clock, there's an atomic clock, there's a worldwide time zone and things like that. You cannot fudge things for a collective consciousness. If one person experiences time travel, then everybody will experience it. So if there is a time traveler or a looking glass technology, all that thing involved in it, it stands on the fringe reality of things. It doesn't attract me that much.
Okay. And so we've covered a lot.
But there is an algorithmic way of tapping into somebody's online post. You can make future posts today. They may happen on their own, but you may tell today that I have made this post in future, and it will come up on September the 23rd.
Right.
Things like that.
Like
That's possible.
This is like supercomputer kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And maybe not. It doesn't even have to be necessarily a supercomputer, but an algorithm.
Yeah.
That is made in a way that can take in all the variables.
You can do that. Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, I wanted to, since we're recording this, we're getting out. There's going to be a lot of names that are shared, and we're not. Some people are like, "Who the heck? What is he talking about?" You're confused. Get ready, because you're going to have to get more of JR in order to understand this. What I want to do though is like, okay, let's start with why did you decide to reach out to me? Because I've been communicating with JRM for a while now. I mean, I think it's
more than 6 months at least.
Yeah, a while now. And I've been like, oh man, this is intense stuff. And so I decided to finally communicate with him today. And then we decided to do this recording after hours of talking. And I'm like, we got to get some of this on recording because I'm not going to remember all of it. So join the club on the names. Why did you choose to communicate with me, JRM?
I think something you said or you probably propitiated in your videos that rang as truth to me, that this is a person who heartily wants to find out what is real and wants to separate the unreal from the real, and you had an honesty somewhere where I cannot say, I know you personally at all, but we spoke only about things that you were posting. And I found the other person was that Scott McMahon. He was also doing similar things. So I reached out to you because I thought, okay, I have more material about these things in my archives because I was, into a very deep dive and research for my own personal purposes, because what I do professionally is somehow ties in, because I also reached out to this Cullen Hoback guy, but he never responded back to me. That it's ridiculous that you are saying that Ron Watkins was Q in that documentary by HBO. So I realized it was a hit piece by HBO because Warner Brothers is the
part of the QAnon psyop, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's a counter psyop. They wanted to discredit Q because there's another guy named Mike Rothschild's guy, right? So he's also always talking about Q. There's Will Summers, who writes about Q as QAnon, right? So
So we're gonna get into a bunch of stuff here, but like before ARM, you can go on and on and on. Scott McMahon is doing some great work. I do believe he's never followed Q. So I got into Q in late 2019, like I told you, so everybody knows. Late 2019.
I have respect. I do like his work. I'll be honest.
Yes, I like it. I don't know what he would even know much about Q, is what I'm saying. Also, I'm not trying to be a journalist. I'm more of a content creator, create stuff and get people's feedback on it. So I'm excited to have you on, because it's not necessarily that I'm coming on saying I believe everything that he has to say. However, I've had enough time now where I'm like, dang, a lot of the things that he is saying make sense. Now, I didn't know anything about Liz Crokin being part of the board. There's a bunch of names that have been shared by JRM to me that I have no idea who they are. However, the people that were on the boards are going to know. So if anybody comes across this that was on this, you're going to start to hear some names. And if this makes sense, then there's going to be something that probably happens from this. But let's go back, because I think before it was really Q. Maybe they were posting as Q. I'm going to try to remember now, but it was CBTS.
Yeah.
That was before the official posting that we know of as Q that started in October 2017,
Right.
October 28th, 2017.
Yeah, the board was actually called Politically Incorrect on 4chan. And the first Chan board was designed by a guy named Hiroyuki something, and he was a Japanese guy. He designed 2chan, and then it was stolen by Ron Watkins' father or brother, whatever their relationship is, Jim Watkins.
Right.
I have an actual screenshot of that person. I'll share it with you in the end of this video.
Yes, and also know that, people, he has shared a lot of things. They've also been shared in the Telegram chat. So if anybody's been in there, he hasn't been as active lately, but over time, he has shared proofs and various things. Now we'll get to the point probably where I try to put some of those into the videos and whatnot, but this is the your first introduction, then we'll see what kind of response we get from this. But so, like, I wanted to talk about that because you were just talking about how you felt there was more legitimacy until the switch to 8chan, which did that happen after like 200? It was like, how many posts were there before the switch to 8chan? Because I thought that was...
Well, Q went dark after the leak of the trip code called Matlock.
Matlock, okay.
Yeah. And
was
everybody...
that already as the post that we see today as Q? That was at that point?
Correct. Yeah. And then what happened, lots of people started posting as Q, and Q, the original Q guy, sat back and was watching everybody. Then suddenly one day he came and he wiped out the whole board, and he created a new board called Patriots Fight. That's when the division actually started, and the infiltration of the Alex Jones group also started, with Pachenik, talking about we ran a soft coup and we were in the intelligence community. On one side, he says that he worked for Kissinger and Kissinger was a great guy. And on the other, he says that he was instrumental in bringing down the Soviet empire. And then also, he was the one who elected Trump, not the people. So this guy, yeah. No, this is Pachenik, Steve Pachenik.
Okay.
So he was a regular on Alex Jones's shows.
I wasn't even aware of Alex Jones until after we got introduced to Q.
Right. So coming back to December 24th, 2017, and then on to February of 2018, there was a long gap, and there were all kinds of people like Corsi, Pamphlet Anon, Baruch the Scribe, Ron Watkins, who became the code monkey on his own, like he was introduced by Tracy Beans. Tracy Beans wrote tweets after tweets about Internet Bill of Rights. That's what we have to push for. There was a large sum of money set aside for that to happen, is what the rumor was. And they all made money out of it. That's
yes. And so you know this because you witnessed all this literally being there, right, on the boards, right?
Right.
And so I want people to think about this because I've never heard anybody talk about this. Not me personally, maybe it's been talked about.
Yeah.
Is that there's an aspect of, I don't know if you call it blockchain or maybe just say Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. These Q posts were monetized or were money generating entity themselves, right?
It only was possible because of data trafficking. If you do not traffic
people to go that way.
Like I just gave an example that one day Elon Musk posted that Jeff Bezos is involved in, child sex trafficking. Nobody bothers to sue each other. So what does that mean is both of them make money out of the data. Data moves faster. There is sudden energy about it, and people start talking about it in millions, and it moves around continents, and people start making money. But how do you control the money flow? Is if it's a blockchain technology, you cannot hack into it, or you cannot steal, or the government cannot come after you. Because even if you're not living in India, because India has banned cryptocurrencies, but people living in India work out of Singapore or out of Taiwan or Vietnam, and they continue to make their money. So the trip code thing that was in play on 4chan was not very easy to breach, but it was also breachable. People could, penetrate that. So if Q was not posting and somebody else was posting, there had to be some kind of continuity with the information that was already posted and then the coming information. Otherwise, it would be exposed easily, which exactly what happened around February of 2018 when Corsi was spinning the idea that Julian Assange could be Q. And boom, and Julian Assange comes out and calls Q operation a Pied Piper operation. And he actually dares to post the names of the people he's calling out, like who is the CEO of NBC or MSNBC, who is she married to, or who is he married to, who is Disney's CEO, who is GE Capital's CEO, or Viacom's CEO. So he started giving a perspective that don't believe in everything that you read about Q posts also. So he segregated or separated himself from it easily. But Corsi was going on and saying that Obama is lawyering up because Assange has some incredible intel about him to drop, and he's already been brought over onshore to the US by Trump. He's been freed from London, and he's onshore, and he's going to meet the Senate and the Judiciary Committee and reveal everything about it. So there was a guy named Bill Chapman among the Q followers who started believing that Julian Assange is Q. And suddenly one day, Bill Chapman goes vanishing. He's gone. So some people just lived for a while and then they are just gone from the movement. Then there were others who came along. I can go on naming everybody, but it doesn't matter. About 2018 February, Q was posting about chasing traffic cams in Hong Kong and telling the followers that there is Snowden there with his backpack, with his girlfriend. You have to go after him and expose him. And at the same time, Biden, Pence, Mattis, McCain, were all sitting in Munich Security Conference. That was the super elite there. So if Q was really against the super elite and the cabal and trying to expose them, he should be exposing about what's going on in Munich than doing things like making people chase traffic cameras. That was my first red flag. So there was a post about Apple computers warehouse or a hotel or something out of Taiwan or from China. It had no meaning, no sense. It made into the Q board and it became a big problem. So I started questioning things. Then I asked questions of some of the hardcore Q followers. They were very hard to break at that time. They won't believe. They said, no. You probably don't know what this is. This is the biggest military sting operation that Trump has set forth. People in Australia, like grandmothers, 80-year-olds, they would believe that this is what's going on, and pedophiles are getting rounded up and they are getting, put in front of Gitmo. Tribunals, Gitmo, and all that. What I found was there was lots of truth in the initial post, but that only pertained to the government, like Perkins Coie, what happened with the Leader Technologies versus Facebook lawsuit, why that did not go anywhere, even though Jim Jordan was handed over those files. There was a particular file I know about called, Vortex files. One of my colleagues I know, she handed over those files directly to Chuck Grassley or somebody else like Mark Warner or somebody. Those people in those times, they were pretty constitutionalist, so they believed that Maxine Waters was a good person. They didn't know that it would be buried. So lots of things were happening in the background. Then came the news that this guy, Michael James Riconosciuto, was released from prison in 2017.
Should I show that picture so people get a
yes.
visual of what he
So
looks like?
You can show that. And I started connecting the dots slowly that maybe this guy was behind this op because he had retribution to give people, exact with people. So there is a good chance that this was the main person who started the Q board. He set up the Q map because he had the genius knowledge, computer science knowledge to do such a thing. Then he handed over the board to people who became the bakers and he moved away from there. But monetization started with that because he had a very smart technical understanding of how to connect timestamps of people's online posts with his own previous company he owned called Timeshare. So he was very smart. He wrote the algorithms for all these programs on Pascal or Fortran, those kind of programs. He's old school computer genius. And he also wrote the encryption codes for keycard access IDs and stuff for sensitive sites like the Nellis Air Base or nuclear plants. So when the question of Q clearance came along, I knew this person had a particular fetish or obsession about Q clearance because he was a colleague of Ted Gunderson and others at the bureau here in LA. And he spun lots of stories at that time too. So half believable, but he could have been the main person. Then after that, it changed hands. There was another guy named David Wynn Miller, who was a computer genius and a brilliant guy who came out with the theories of the postmaster general is the most powerful person on earth. And he also declared himself the king of Hawaii. And he taught Parse syntax grammar.
He was doing this on the boards?
No, I only started connecting GWM, as I would say in anagram style of Michael James Riconosciuto. He always uses anagrams. So earlier posts of Q, you can see there are lots of anagrams and initials than actual names used, like JB for Jason Bourne or Joe Biden or John Brennan. You would never know which one he's indicating. Right. So GWM also had similar style, but he was not scared of anything because he purportedly helped Kamala Harris, then AG of California State, win a $27 billion lawsuit against the mortgage companies or the banks, big banks. They all paid $27 billion. You can actually fact check that part too, if you want to. So DWM, yeah, the initial posts were these. The first biggest post was the HRC has been detained, that one. We immediately knew that this is not going to happen.
Yeah, the anagrams you're talking about is HRCs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's lots of MJR guy liked to use those, and that's why you're some of the reasons why you've drawn some of the conclusions that you've had.
Right. So when the later posts started happening, they were no longer in this kind of Socratic formula. It was all in paragraphs.
Do you know why there wasn't a sign off as Q for the first however many posts?
It was much later, I think around about 28th of October, that he first took the moniker Q after posting an elaborate explanation of what Q clearance is.
Oh, yep. I don't even remember what post that was, but I'll just keep scrolling on the screen until we find it.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about Alice in Wonderland, which is like a constant here in the earlier post.
No, Q is before this. You can go back a little.
Well, here it's not. He's not signed off as Q. Not signed off as Q. Then we have 61. There's a Q. So what are we got here?
Just check October 28th.
Okay, I'll go up. October 28th.
Yeah.
But October 28th was the first post.
Okay, there should be something around that time where he explains about what is a Q clearance.
Oh, Q clearance? Here, let me see if I can type it in.
Yeah.
Q clearance. All right, 34. Let's get that.
That's November 2nd only. Okay. Yeah, so November 1st and 2nd. That's when he started posting. That's when people started calling him Q.
Gotcha.
And BO was board operator. Lots of people thought it was Barack Obama initially.
I would.
There was a guy named Montegraph. He said that it's Hillary Clinton who controls the board.
Why would she want that? Yeah. I mean, just to throw out misinformation.
And she would throw herself in jail. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
As ridiculous as that can be. So one of those, side shows, they happened.
Okay.
Then ultimately came a time when I went ahead and made an anon post into the same board saying that there's going to be a Project Merlin coming up. And the next Q post was about Project Merlin after that.
Merlin.
Yeah. So I actually posted that on Twitter
There we
to
go.
Royston Potter. I said, be careful. If you are really military, you would know what I'm talking about. Then do not talk about these things because there could be some classified information. So as soon as I said Operation Merlin, there comes this Merlin. Then there was a Fiddler post. Check what's the Fiddler post. Fiddler.
Hold on. Fiddler 836.
Yeah.
So you were interacting on the boards and you were putting this stuff. Why did they decide to include what you were talking about in here? Were you just manipulating them? They thought you were someone.
I was just randomly throwing stuff to see if they're authentic, if they would pick up the thread and say, what is this nonsense? But they were just getting played by simple, veracity of things that they didn't know what I was talking about.
And so who were these characters according to you, that you think it was, like Horsey and Pamphlet, these guys?
These were all bogus people who somehow figured out that first trip code of Q with that exclamation point UW.YYE1FXO. That's connected to Michael Aquino, Major Michael Aquino, or Colonel Michael Aquino.
When is he said to have died?
He recently died after. Yeah.
You think it's real, or do you think that he could be still alive? I mean,
no, he's gone. He's
definitely gone.
He's gone. His partner Vallely is still there, and McInerney was the other person who both got on John B. Wells's Caravan to Midnight. They have their own parallel intelligence, talk going on. Okay, so coming back to this Fiddler post, this was the time when Q actually posted to Jack Dorsey that you are bringing a private citizen into this game. So it was like a threat. Without knowing who was posting about the Fiddler things, and they got conned into this. They believed that there is some other player into it. And then he also posted about John Perry Barlow. Just go ahead and check that. If you trace the John Perry Barlow post.
Barlow.
Yeah. There you go. So Snowden, the clock is ticking. How's Russia, Mr. Contractor? Freedom of the press, John Perry Barlow. So according to Q Post here, John Perry Barlow was offed by the CIA or whoever. He was 187th. And he was a great guy. He was a pioneer of fighting for freedom of the internet and all those things. The irony is, John Perry Barlow, who was also part of that band name, you said something, Grateful Dead or something?
Grateful Dead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of the founding partner or something of that. Also something called Frontier Services Group, which was connected to Eric Prince, his Navy SEAL company.
Blackwater?
No, this was called Frontier Services Group. You can check that later.
But it's connected to Eric Prince.
Yeah. And Barlow had another company which was also Frontier something. It was about freedom of the press and freedom of internet and stuff like that. So then comes Tracy Bean's story about IBOR, which is Internet Bill of Rights. So if you check that one.
Oh, wait, did they use the
IBOR? Yeah. There you go.
Let me get the first one. 873 was the first time.
So there was a big hard push from Tracy Beans and Corsi and others that somehow Trump should pass this IBOR bill.
And then people need to realize, because I don't think we've stated it in this recording, that Tracy Beans would have that's kind of the connection to General Michael Flynn.
Yes, that was true, because she started writing lots of articles about how innocent Flynn was. Substack kind of thing on the old Twitter 1.0. Yeah. And then she also had a friend, Ann Vander Steel.
Yeah.
They would get on with Corsi. They started doing dissemination of the Q drops, and Corsi would get like $500 on a super chat on YouTube channel called Patriot Soapbox 24/7, which was run by Pamphlet Annan and his wife, Radii something. And one day he got exposed because he was posting, and Q also posted his own tripcord. So there is another clown named Real Dark Brown Judge or something like that.
Real Dark Judges?
Yeah, that
Now
guy.
they're on Twitter right now.
Yeah. So
They were on the boards back then?
They were all on the board. They were all playing these games.
Man. So, okay. So now this is getting crazy. And so what you're saying is that the different people were posting claiming to be this Q clearance patriot person.
Correct. Because once they learned the map, they learned how to make the post. They could create their own trip codes. So there was one particular code, one particular post by Q, which made people like Jordan Sather and others chase 11,000 books from where the trip codes were created. Now, here's one small anecdote I want to give you.
Q people are freaking out right now, so whatever. Right. You guys can suck it up. Like we're searching for truth, and you can take this for what it is. I'm not saying it's gospel. I'm not saying it's all true, but let's get some more into this conversation because I have not seen hardly anybody that covers Q that I think is even a reputable person and not doing it just for money. And we're even talking about how these posts. So when an individual posted that they make money or monetization on these boards, are you?
Yeah. Well, anywhere there's movement of data, moving, that's the most important part. Because if you know about the history of Goldman Sachs makes 2% of every dollar that moves in and out of the country, both ways. 2%.
Right. So let's say Corsi decides to post as Q. Right. And since they have their own individual identifier, if you will, somewhere in that code, is that how they generate blockchain money or Bitcoin or whatever it would be?
Well, at that time, they didn't even have to do it Bitcoin. They had YouTube and they had money flowing out of super chats and everything in hundreds of thousands.
So they would post, but then they would know something about it.
They know already that they are the people who made the post. So they will get back on the Soapbox channel, which was 24/7.
Sound like they knew what they were talking about. Right. And then their followers would be like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing, and then give them money.
So the hardcore people who believed that Corsi was the biggest decoder was True Eyes, Pamphlet Annan, his wife Radii, Baruch the Scribe, Tracy Beans, Corsi, then who else? Farmer Funk, and there were a few others. They were all believers that Corsi was the best decoder and Corsi was making the post himself. Then he got caught. Then Q posted, the original Q came back and he said, you have to be careful who you follow. I will never communicate with anybody outside the board. There will be no emails. So Corsi got exposed in that.
Your people are freaking out right now. It's crazy.
It's amazing how all that happened. Then they connected Corsi to a typical Jewish group called B'nai Birth Society or something like that. Polish Jewish people.
And so some of the names that people will be more familiar. Okay, I'll let you finish off there.
Yeah.
But it starts with that MJR dude. We showed his picture on the screen.
Correct.
You mentioned Q 2.0 being potentially someone named Bailey.
Right.
3.0 is this Corsi and Pieknichik, or however you say it.
Pachenik. This is the MJR guy who has one post on Twitter saying "Go Irish" is his status, and he says, "What did Biden ever do?" That's his only tweet. And how I found out this guy is also a very interesting story.
Right.
Defango was making lots of backyard videos of his because Defango's goal was to disrupt the whole movement and say, I created Q. And it's all bogus. I went to the Gen Con or something, the gamers conference, and I mooted this idea to Schonberger that we should write codes, we should make a movement and make money out of it. So Defango was holding his phone, big phone, and he was walking around in his backyard. And there was a caller who called him, and his name was, or nickname was Spicky or something, Skippy or Spicky. You know that Podesta was called Skippy.
Yeah.
So the person who spoke to him, we didn't hear the conversation on the other side, but I picked up that person's ID and I went around to see who were his followers. So I found out this MJR was one of his. That guy was following MJR. So when I looked up MJR's followers list or following list, one person stood out. That was Tracy Beans. I said, why would Tracy Beans be on his list? And then Tracy Beans connected to Flynn and others, right? Ann Vander Steele. There was Sebastian Gorka.
You could connect Liz Crokin to Flynn.
Liz Crokin. Probably Liz Crokin is more Bill O'Reilly. That kind of connection, because she got mentored by him in journalism.
Sure.
So this is a different group, but they were all somehow interconnected. Then came along the Carrie Cassidy group and all those Bill Wood and Bill Brookbaker or whatever, Looking Glass Technology, all that nonsense came along at that time. Between 2018 February to 2019 was all crappy.
But was Carrie Cassidy on the boards?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, just
but she was into the Q stuff. She was in an indirect way connected because she was interviewing people like Will Koch and others are there, right? Already.
Yeah, well, Q became something huge. So obviously anybody that wanted to benefit from Q and making it more legitimate would have started, making videos on it. I'm assuming.
I have made a specific video on the trip codes thing only. So some of the trip codes are very interestingly connected to some books written by people. Mm-hmm. One book was written by Mark Dice. Mark Dice is a big Illuminati buster kind of person, but he never spoke about Q. David Icke never spoke about Q. But he also talks about the cabal the same way. Yeah. There is Hidden Hand, which was a moniker used by an anonymous guy claiming to be an insider from one of the British royalty families or the 13 royalty families. And he posted about the Great Awakening in 2008. Similar things happening on the boards of About Top Secret. And there was one more blog site similar. They were all talking on there. Mostly they used to talk about 9/11. They used to talk about aliens, then the Mayan calendar nonsense until, 12/21/2012 happened. Because nothing happened. The world did not die or the doomsday never happened. So then there was West Penray. So there was a guy named Martin Bosley, who was an ex-Marine or something. He talked about NIMSA quite a lot. So people thought, okay, maybe he's got some military background. Now, this Bailey guy was married to Sarah Carter, who used to appear on Sean Hannity all the time. So the first time how I connected all these dots was there was a Kim Jong-un and Trump meeting in Singapore, if you remember. So Sean Hannity was the center stage of the journalistic side being there. And they were posting pictures of the hotel where they stayed on Qboard. So the claim was that Q is all the time with Trump, okay? And similarly, they also posted the pictures of the missile, which was shot at Air Force One DEFCON 1, blah, 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 out of Hawaii. And people started hunkering down the bunkers, including Tulsi Gabbard, as she says, that this happened. This should never have happened. So it became the talk of the town. There was Royston Potter, who was the close friend of Tracy Beans, who pepped her up and made her one of the chief decoders or elaborate writer for the Q board, right? So they all became a cult. And slowly MJR, moved away because he created this movement. It was making money. So he would sit in Cyprus or in Australia, meet with somebody like Ricardo Bossi or somebody, and they would talk about Q, forever. And people would never know that you are actually talking to the guy who created this board.
Right.
And
then some of these ones that I just one other name that I've recognized here with this pamphlet anon, Corsi, Beans around this time, Lisa Mae Crowley.
Yes.
I've recognized that name from being on social media too, and in this.
Then this is how the Chan board actually started. I have to show you that too.
Also, the next Q 6.0 that you have on here that you shared with me, that's getting into some massive names that I want to say. And if we'll see how people respond to this, but it's going to get interesting.
What does it say? You can read it out.
And this is Hiroyuki. So was that the guy that created 2chan?
Yes.
Okay. So
look at the dates.
Yes, 9/22/2015.
Tuesday, 1743:31.
So what is a 1743:31? That's just
a timestamp.
Timestamp 5:43.
Yep.
Okay.
What he writes is, I made up text, so I'll paste it here. Go ahead, read it.
Okay. I'm happy that there is no stupid 4chan users who easily are deceived without any evidence. First of all, NT Technology, which is owned by Jim Watkins, who's the father of Ron Watkins, we're a hosting company which hosted 2chan.net servers. Yep. Also, they provided domain privacy protection services.
Right.
I used their services. I means Packet, Monsters, Inc., and I in all later sentences. You want keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. You want me to finish the whole thing? Because if you want to talk at any point in here.
No, this is good. Keep reading that, yeah.
One day, their credit card servers were cracked. The 2channel, or is that 2chan, pass service was made by Zero Inc. and NT Technology. They secretly stored users' credit card numbers and users' personal information, and crackers leaked those information. I didn't have any access to the 2chan pass servers, and I've never known that they stored such information on their servers. After the leaking, they wanted to make 2chan pass again, but I couldn't trust them, so that I declined. And they were almost bankrupt. So Jim stole 2chan.net domain and systems. It is what happened. Jim Watkins, if you guys, just repeat that. Jim Watkins stole 2chan.net domain and systems. So going on to the next paragraph, if they don't tell a lie, they can explain that. Who gave or sold the domain and system to you? Is there any evidence like a contract? There are no such evidence because they stole. Actually, I have sued them in Japan. The lawsuit starts on November. If I do illegal things, why wouldn't they sue me? Instead of that, I have sued them because they are liars.
Correct.
Wow.
So this is how this Chan board thing started. And there was Freddie Brennan, who was a paraplegic from Philippines, and he was working for these guys, the Watkins, under the moniker Hot Wheels. So he found out one day that Ron Watkins was making the Q post, and he started exposing them. So they went after him legally. So it went to the point where this Cullen Hoback guy who was making the docu for HBO, he got him exfilled from the Philippines so that he'll not be arrested, because he's, I think, American citizen anyway. So Freddie Brennan actually started saying that Ron Watkins is Q. That's how that complication came along. But I knew all along that Ron Watkins came into the story much later.
But he was posting as Q at some point.
Yes and no. We would never know, because he was playing the code monkey. Right. If he was the code monkey, then he had access to all the information on his computer. But how would he post as Q from a different IP address? Becomes
okay. Gotcha.
Questionable thing, right? That's not possible. But we never know, right? What all was possible, we don't know. But
He just
now
doesn't
I'm
seem like
going
an
to pull up
individual.
some more information that will actually show you. So there was this Martin Bailey. He was partially blinded by some incendiary blast or something in Afghanistan. So he was a Marine and was married to Sarah Carter. So for a while, Bailey became B on keyboard. So where they goofed up was they posted Trump's travel schedule before anybody else could know. And then the missile attack thing happened.
So you're saying she's married to this Bailey, or Bailey's married to Sarah Carter?
Was formerly married, yeah, at that time.
Can I share the screen and we take a look at the pictures and see if we can look?
Sure.
I think you have to stop sharing screen first. Oh wait, no, I can. Let me see if I can pull this up just to make sure.
Oh, hold on. I'll stop sharing. Can you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Are we looking at the right people here?
Yes, that's who we are talking about.
Okay.
So he
Carter,
got partially blinded.
Bailey.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So people suspected he was doing it because Q was posting lots of links of Sarah Carter being interviewed on Hannity.
All right. She actually had her own show?
No, she was mostly on Hannity, but yeah, she later had her own show. The questionable thing was this Sarah Carter was brought up in Saudi Arabia. She was born here probably, but she lived her childhood and early teenage and some of her adult years in Saudi Arabia. So when the first posts about Saudi Arabia came along through Q, people started thinking, okay, so there has to be an insider, because Hannity, Jesse Waters, and others would not talk anything against Q. Hannity even started posting a lapel pin of Q on his collar.
Yep, and he has the pain pin that he's always wearing.
And Jesse Waters actually did a couple of shows on the Q people who were his friends. And then,
but he wasn't publicly saying the Q people were his friends, right?
No, he did say in a couple of his broadcasts. I remember that. He did say.
Really?
Yeah. There are some of his endorsements for Q.
Okay, so we're at this Hot Wheels Freddie Brennan guy.
Yeah.
Ron Watkins, Jim Watkins, who we just
correct.
This Japanese gentleman talked about how they stole from him.
Right.
So they stole this board, the 2chan board, and then turned it into something else, or what?
That's how 4chan came into play.
So because I've always thought the story was that the Watkins owned 8chan, and that's when the change happened to them and everything got wonky.
No, initially they were also involved in 4chan, but what happened was after the Christchurch shooting and the El Paso shootout, the manifesto of the shooter matched some of the Q posts or some excerpts of the Q posts. So they had to take down the Q posts. So they went after 4chan and they removed all the posts from 4chan. That's how the CBTS board got destroyed, because of the El Paso shootout and the Christchurch shootout.
I never knew nothing about that. And then it became 8chan.
Then it became 8chan. Then 8chan got compromised, because when people started pointing out that 8kun was coming up and its logo was matching something to do with WEF, World Economic Forum. So they were getting funding from there. So people started calling out the Watkins also.
Wow.
So, and then...
But I'm right before we go too far into this, because the name that you gave me yesterday says Q 6.0. That it also included, get this, guys. I mean, this is claims and what we're talking about. Dan Bongino and Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
They were what you saw involved on the boards at this time.
Correct.
And how would you know that they were on there, like Dan Bongino and Steve Bannon? How would you know that?
Well, there was a story about Bongino getting threatened by somebody at one point. That became talk of the Q board people generally, who were talking on Twitter. And some of them even brought those stories to me as well. Then it all got diverted and moved away to Pamphlet Anon, because he started posting as well. And he was first exposed by Unirock, and then by Defango, and then others. And he made some stupid post and then he tried to, cover it up. It didn't work.
Yeah, somebody else shared a Reddit
Yeah.
board where he
Yeah.
had posted and they said passcode leaked or something.
Yeah. But all that stupidity was okay because the main Q guy was still watching the board. He was not posting, but he was still continuing to watch what's going on. And whenever he came back, it was late 2022 was the last post that he made. That's where the stupidity of ascension nonsense started. So I knew that this is not Michael James Riconosciuto.
And okay,
Last few posts, 4 posts, it continuously talks about ascension. So some kids, some gamer kids, they started talking about the Weekend is posting as Q now. The guy who is now losing his title as the Weekend. He's Abel Tesfaye. He's posting, nothing is random, everything is fine in heaven, ascension, and blah blah blah. The end is near, right? Enjoy the show.
But Ascension, as far as what searching on the boards here, I'll share it real quick. There's only 2 posts of Ascension, and it's really late.
Yeah, the last 4 posts have ascension, or 2 have.
Let's see, 2 of them. Yep, it's these 2 right here, and it's literally like some of the last. But like this is the last post right here, right?
Right. It talks about your DNA and run back and Dominion SOS office, and then investigators, researchers, whistleblowers, patriots in trusted position. Trust yourself. You have seen the truth. Time to show the world.
What do you think happened that made him stop posting altogether?
Somebody got to him.
Too much. There was just too much heat, and somebody figured it out, and like they just had to stop.
Well, if you tell me there are 18 intelligence agencies.
18, okay.
And then there is DOD, which has absolute power. The DOD can walk into anybody's house and ransack things and take out all your gadgets. Nothing can be done about it.
Sure.
They have absolute power. They have more power than FBI.
Right.
So do you think that somebody who is sitting in a basement and making these posts cannot be traced by satellites and cannot be caught? Because even the Russian government destroyed the Tor browser. When people started talking about Operation Trust, you can pull up that if you want on Wiki. Operation Trust.
Oh, yeah. Stop share and then I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Why do you think? But real quickly, why do you think they never took all the posts down? Just because they'd already been so public that people already offloaded them?
But it's helping some people who are still continuing to be in power. That's what it means. If they take it down altogether, then they lose something because everybody has played their own games.
This is what you wanted, right?
Correct. Read that.
Yes, and I've covered some of this on my channel where the Q thing has been related to Operation Trust that they ran in the Soviet Union.
Yep.
Here's one to throw at you that's just kind of a winger. Have you heard of David Quigley?
Of
the
course.
guy.
Of course.
Yes. What do you think about his situation in this whole thing? Because this is what he said. He says that Q's Operation Trust, and then he claims to be the real JFK Jr. and that John was actually I can't remember what his relation was, stepbrother or something like that. Not actually the son of JFK, his father.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all, to tell you honestly.
Think he's just completely MK Ultra kind of thing?
No, it's something which people allow, things, which I don't allow. That's not our way,
Either way, we'll get back onto Operation Trust and something similar to what they did in Russia. What we know of as Russia. Do you want me to read any of this?
Okay, that's okay. I just wanted to show that Operation Trust was the Russian version of Q.
Yeah, and it was a counterintelligence operation.
Yeah.
It was to pacify people, right?
Exactly.
In order to help the OGPU identify real monarchists and anti-Bolsheviks.
Correct.
It was a pacification program, basically. And then what have I said many times on my channel is that I see so much patriot pacification in the sense that they make you think all this amazing stuff is happening while it's just business as usual. If not, business has grown while people are thinking that all the children are being rescued and that the saving of the world is happening. Yeah. All these people are making all this money off of you, and it's all just hopium, fake, ridiculous.
It seems so fantastical, but it's not true. It's not real.
Right.
People fell for it very easily. They did not question. I've always been trained to ask questions to, if you are somebody's talking with something with authority, you have to ask questions and say, I don't believe that, first off,
And I learned
And
that the hard way. I listened to a
yeah,
guy, Gene Decode, you know my story, and believed that he was, military, and therefore I gave him some kudos because of that, because of his military background, and it sounded great that all the children were being saved from this horrors of human trafficking and all this kind of stuff. But then I've done work more modern day after that fell apart and found out he was a fraud, to show that the human trafficking industry has only grown since even Q started posting.
mm-hmm.
So you have guys like 107 and all these people, the Sound of Freedom, the PSYOPs and stuff like that, making
The guy who made the movie The Sound of Freedom was taking money from people who were themselves involved in trafficking.
right.
How
Well,
do you
Tim Ballard,
justify
Tim
that then?
Ballard, the star. Are you talking about the producers, or are you talking about like Tim Ballard of OUR, or formerly of OUR?
Somebody was involved. That's what I mean.
Right.
We don't know who exactly, but they were involved. So that doesn't justify the means at all.
Right.
And I'm trying to find one chart for you which goes into the details of how many groups were actually playing Q. Like there is a ridiculous post, I still follow your lead on all this, relying more on the inquiry of. Let me share that
Yeah,
so that
sure.
everybody can see it. What I'm
This
reading
is
about.
from the boards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So look at this post. Does it make any sense?
So this is post number 990.
Yep.
Okay. Posted by Anonymous.
April 2nd, 2018.
2018. I still follow your lead on all this, relying more on the inquiry of those digging here. But March wasn't nearly as mad as what you sold us. Please don't build us up to break us down, Q. And then it
What
says,
is the answer?
well, NK. So I'm assuming like people
North
take it as
Korea.
North Korea.
So what? How does that correlate with North Korea? Nothing.
Exactly. And Trump had basically diffused that situation too, right?
Yeah.
So like, why would that make it? Because Q is the same thing. Q in this movement, it's just like something big is coming. The World War III, the gut punch, the waking up the world, the Great Awakening has to happen with everybody paying attention because they're scared of the scare event, basically, to get people's attention and then to diffuse it after they realize what's going on in the world. That was the kind of stuff that's been shared for years now, and people are still sharing it. Now with Trump coming back in for the second term, so many people are getting excited again. So this is a question that's probably already been, people are like freaking out as they're watching this.
Yeah.
But why do you think Trump
then what about this post? Look at this. Increase in chatter, authorization B192, Sparrow Red, prevent at all costs, good Castle Online Q, right? It's some random post. And McKinsey, 79 missiles destroyed, blah, 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 29 missiles hit. How is that even connected?
Right.
When I show these to some of my military friends, they laugh at me. So how are you even, tolerating these nonsensical things?
I know, but because it's like it's because it's almost impossible to connect these things. People think that it's high level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how the brain with a lot of people works. It's like, because I don't understand it, it must be super high grade intelligence.
Yeah. So
give me a break.
You have heard the term trust the plan, right?
Over and over again.
So this was my guy who lived in Sweden. He wrote these pages many years ago.
Okay. The last tentacle of the octopus.
Yeah. What does he say?
Do you want the actual reading of it, or my name is Dave West part?
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay. My name is Dave West, and based on the postings that I have been following on the internet, it appears to me that a forum has been created here for informing all awaiting payees of the freedom arbitrage. It has compelled me to ask a few questions that I would prefer to be delivered to Casper personally, as opposed to having posted at this point on your website. However, my probe will be soft. Therefore, we'll trust that your judgment will prevail. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Is that supposed to be messenger? Is MESSR?
Yeah.
Messenger.
No, messers.
Messers.
That's European way of saying Mr. and Mrs. together.
Oh.
Messers. Yeah.
Mr. Casper, firstly, let me say that I'm not a paid investigator, except for personal interest, nor am I connected in any way to any government agency, and am certainly not one of the alphabet boys who, on basic moral principles, I despise, although accepting they're a necessary evil.
or at least those that are mainly concerned with the security of the USA, as opposed to the boys within, i.e., the rogue boys, whose allegiance, of course, is unto their masters and their ideological design for a new world order. So what is this exactly? So this is by Dave West, The Last Tentacle of Octopus. So this is what is this from? Is this from a book of somebody writing out?
He wrote a manuscript which he never published, which he left with me afterwards.
So
but
this is
he's the person who coined the term "trust the plan." This is the guy. He's an ex-spook banker, lived in Sweden.
But whoever posted it on the boards and got that rolling got it from him, you're saying?
They got it from Kissinger, Henry Kissinger's term. Trust the plan was Henry Kissinger's term.
Oh,
so they are batting for Henry Kissinger. They don't even realize.
And Henry Kissinger was about as evil as it gets.
Exactly. So this guy was against all that nonsense. He first brought that to our notice.
Okay.
And he talks about the arbitrage and the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union and the gold and AU and AG and all those things. $21.3 trillion. That's what you were asking me about. How did it go missing on 9/11, right?
Right.
This already happened before during the BCCI collapse.
And they were just announcing it there as a distraction.
Correct. That's what they do all the time, right?
All they do is just play mind games, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we've covered so much, JRM.
I know.
Just as far as the video goes for the public, it might be about time to kind of wrap this one up.
I know. Let me show one screenshot because this is important. Look at this. Roseanne Barr.
How do you know this is Roseanne Barr?
No, he's talking about Roseanne Barr's post here. See it?
Okay.
On
this
CNN.
Is on 4/6/2018 on Friday. What a coincidence. And it's a CNN politics post of Roseanne Barr conspiracy tweets.
Why does it make into Q board?
Right.
If he's military intelligence, why would he want to use all these nonsensical things? So there is this trip code nonsense, right? This is a fake post.
But and then the Q people would say news unlocks the map or news unlocks the board, right?
Unbelievable, right?
So they're just playing with people.
Yeah. So this happened. Okay. So let me check if I can pull out one more. I'm trying to show you as much as I can quickly. Look at this. This is how the whole Q board's movement brain works. This is the lady who first identified Vincent Fusca as John F. Kennedy Jr.
And then he's been John Denver. And he's not even close to, well, maybe he's closer to John Denver in height, but he's not even close to the JFK Jr. height. It's ridiculous that anybody thinks that Fushka is actually anybody other than Fushka.
I know. And there's also an obituary for Vincent Fusca, and there's a graveyard for Fusca.
What?
Yeah, you can check that. You can check that.
Weird.
Just like DWM, I just mentioned to you that David Wynn Miller allegedly died in 2019. He was killed by the government, poisoned, and he died eventually, as posted on a YouTube comment by one of his nephews or somebody. And then later I find out the obituary had some anomaly in it, and the epitaph on the tombstone said David Wynn Miller Jr. instead of David Wynn Miller. He never went by the name Junior. So then he also is born on the September the 17th. And 107 first time opened his face to the world on the 17th of September in Las Vegas or something like that. Okay.
So let's okay. Because we're not going to get into that fully on this episode. However, I've been exposing Juan as being a major part of the grift, and then him working through Nino having probably maybe the most profitable grift situation going on, especially with what Nino has with that Nino boxer, and then the Nino's corner, whatever, Anyways, so
before we wrap up this video, just read out this part a little bit.
From the top,
about the book called The Q, Luther Blissett, 26.
Okay, but just to give people like an idea of what we'll go into in a future video, you believe that David Wynn Miller, is it?
Yeah. David Wynn Miller
is a past alias or name or who 107 really
could be. Yes, I'm 99.99% sure. There is God who would say no, it's not. I would believe it.
Okay.
Any human being tries to convince me, I will bring back all the substantive elements to show them how I arrived at that conclusion.
And you've shared some with me. I'm not kind of quite convinced, but if we'll
You
throw
will
that
be
out there.
convinced once you watch the video or you go over it, because I worked in audio field for a very long time. I'm into audio editing and video editing for profession.
Right.
But I can identify vocal cords very clearly because of my musical training, and also because I'm a musician, I'm a violinist. So our work is precise about the sounds that come out of computers. Even if you modulate it and change it, there are certain things, certain diction, certain timbre, which will never change.
Right.
There are certain words that you will say it in a very unique way.
So
I have identified those things and put things together, and the algorithmic values of what they talk about, like moon landing, for instance, or about space,
right.
about machines, about Babylon, about the obelisks all over
Right.
the world, all that thing matches very well. Only thing that changed between DWM and JOS is the profanity. JOS uses lots of profanity. DWM never screams, never shouts, never says one bad word.
And there you guys go. You guys got a little preview of that future discussion.
We will do
about
that.
who 107 very well may well have been or is or used as I don't even know how it works, man. The guy has many names. Wayne Willett,
So
whatever you want to call him now.
in this particular book excerpt, I'm showing us Luther Blissett's Q.
Yes.
It's page 30 of 477. Christ says, render to Caesar the things, all that's about Christ and all, right?
Right.
Then you see the word Karlstad. That's where Germany, Trump is from.
Can you highlight that? Highlight that on there. I'm not seeing it. Yeah, just highlight it on the document so people can easily see it. There we go. Okay. Karistad.
RLS.
RL. Karlstad. Okay.
So that's where in Germany Trump is from. And this book has Karlstad as a person. And the hero of this story is Q. This is 2002. And guess what is on the cover of the book of Q? Q is playing the fiddle. Do you remember the post that that Trump made? I don't know what this means, but nothing can stop what is coming.
Yep.
Dan Scavino's post.
Yep.
It's about the fiddle. And there's a fiddler post on Q board as well.
And that's how I want to end this. Why do you think that Trump is playing into Q? It's just, it works for his base. Give us
numbers. Numbers game. So let me pull up one last document, then we will wrap this particular.
Because almost every Q person that's actually into it believes that he's Q plus and that he's part of the 10, which you're saying like there is no 10.
There's no 10.
Yep.
There's always one, and then the rest are all players. They got trained how to use the Q board, how to use the Q maps, because Michael Riconosciuto was always obsessed about maps because he was autistic himself, maybe. He was a 15-year-old when he broke into many things and was a genius with the computer systems, just like Barron Trump is, right?
Sure.
And now if you look at what I have said here in this document, you can read it through.
This whole thing. Oh, George Webb's in here. Is this when it gets into Jason Goodman?
Yeah. Let's go from the top.
Okay. Members of the Q group from the beginning to now: Tracy Beans / Diaz, Lieutenant Colonel Royston Potter, the Mormon, Baruch the Scribe, who is Paul Ferber, Zulu, South African, Praying Medic / Dave Hobbs.
Or David Hayes, I think, not Hobbs.
David Hayes?
Yeah.
And then you got Dustin Nemos in there. And when I came on in 2019, I don't remember if Dustin and Praying Medic had both been a part of the book, but I read some book about Q that Dustin Nemos was a part of. So it's crazy seeing Dustin kind of completely flip his stance. Anyways, Will from hijackedlife.com.
Correct.
Farmer Funk, dude from New Zealand or Australia, I suppose. James Munder.
Yeah, he died recently in Vegas or somewhere.
He's a crazy dude from LA, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's Ann, Storm the Capitol, Vandersteel. She hires Tracy Beans for a new broadcast show. So that was all going on around that time.
Correct.
And Ann Vandersteel's a creepy one because it's like I was getting into Gene Decode.
Yeah.
People that follow me know that I was with Gene for a while, and he's a complete fraud. Found that out. It's a cult. Anyways, she was doing shows with Kirsten W.
Yeah, I know.
Or
And she
Gene
died afterwards. Kirsten
Yeah.
died. Yeah.
So Gene was doing those shows with Kirsten W. Then all of a sudden, Ann Vandersteel shows up.
Yeah.
I think George Webb showed up at that time too.
Right.
Very weird how they
There was
came
Dave
in.
Acton also, if you remember.
Dave, yep.
That's
Okay.
George Webb himself.
Yep. It's crazy how they've intersected it. And then anybody that got buzz, because Gene started getting buzz when he was on Kirsten and then doing his dumb decodes with Rick of Blessed to Teach. And then these freaking little snakes come in and start showing up and making connections. It's gross. So anyways, 0 hour dash Brian, not to be confused out with Brian from High Impact Flicks. 0 hour, aka Brian, was working with the Trump campaign from behind the scenes and was promised pay from the hands of Sebastian Gorka, the self-proclaimed expert in counterterrorism, and who happened to be on Sean Hannity and other Fox Channel programs regularly, pushing the agendas to get Trump elected and sustained through the impeachment process, etc. And you were saying some stuff about Sebastian Gorka. Is it all in here?
We'll come in here. Yeah.
Okay. When Sebastian Gorka didn't pay 0 hour adequately, or what he was promised after their collective effort brought fruits to the Trump campaign, Brian started to make expose videos about the insiders, naming them all as well. If his videos are still up and running on YouTube, it would be worth a visit on a few. So do you know if those are up at all, or?
I don't know if they're still up or not. Okay, I'm back.
Yep, I'm just getting back and settled myself.
Okay, so you see, this is how this small gang of Q people were eyeing that money and probably even got some portions of it to be shared by a handful few. At this time, as Crazy Beans was growing as a channeler, Baruch the scribe sent her a new computer and set her up with complete studio-like equipment because she lived in the US and Baruch lived in South Africa.
So Tracy Beans was growing as a channeler?
Right.
I didn't know that I don't know anything about Tracy Beans other than the connection kind of to Flynn and being.
Then there was also an episode of she losing her house to a fire. She was crying in front of the house and blah, 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 and all that. You know, they gain sympathy in many ways, but I think probably she really lost the house in a fire. That's okay. But again, the kind of grift they were into, that's not justified.
Right.
Right. And then Baruch the scribe sent her a new computer and set her up with all this blah, blah, blah. And then how Q is military intel operation. This is the guy who said to the world that if you are not following Q, you are with the pedos along with Kelly. Can you believe that? When you are challenged, you say that the other person is a pedo or you're supporting the pedophiles.
Right.
Which
But
means,
you're saying this was Stephen Kelly that was saying this?
No, this was this Baruch guy. And
So
then
Baruch.
Stephen Kelly then became the admin for them suddenly one day. And then he started talking about Getty. Nothing else. He has only one agenda. There's Getty Center, there's underground bunkers there, and children are buried there, or blah, blah, blah. I have been to Getty Center many times, 4 or 5 times. I've never seen anything bad. Maybe there are some bad stuff that happen everywhere in Disneyland, in Getty. It happens in museums and zoos and every place. But
Well, I think a lot of it's underground is what the claim is.
it's not that organized, is what I'm saying. It's random, miscellaneous.
Okay.
Sometimes things happen right under your nose and you don't even know. Who knew about those Jewish guys coming out of those tunnels in New York,
Right.
with those hats? Nobody knew that, right?
Right. And I don't think we got into this recorded episode
Yeah.
about the adrenochrome that you said is legit. Like
Yeah.
this operations.
Yeah,
stuff.
of course. So there are some parts I didn't talk about that, probably because I'll have to explain in a more elaborate way
Yeah,
why Trump was allowing it to happen from his towers, and how did he contaminate the whole thing for Hollywood celebrities to say, hey, if Trump gets reelected, our lives are destroyed because your supply gets destroyed, right? That's the whole idea of this Q group.
Yeah. I remember that.
Then this one, which means he's definitely close to the president, hence he can do anything. Just say anything. In other words, Q is above the law for any country, continent, and even maybe in future, any planet, right? So this is how they all came. So this guy started exposing, and he said he received an insider's email from Merck, and he started doing this part. And then we already spoke about this part, right?
Right.
And one of the guys who owns Reddit.com is married to one of the Williams sisters, Serena,
the tennis player, Serena Williams.
Tennis player, yeah. So then this happened. There is this story. The Mossad group started to get interested. So they floated the idea, according to the number one guy mentioned below, Quinn Michaels, that Q might be an AI and is created by Peter Thiel of Palantir, formerly founder of PayPal and other AI companies.
Right. And that's the claim of Tori Says. And did you want to add her into that mix of the people that were around the boards and stuff?
Yeah. But if you know Michael James Riconosciuto, then you will know that he is actually the original creator of this board.
Right. And he's like pretty much, we were talking about maybe autistic.
It's very legit. In his trade, he's solid. But the conspiracy part of him is always questionable, according to my other mates I know in the bureau who are like high level, decorated Marines and Green Beret. Those kind of people say, no, this guy's you have to take his things with a large grain of salt. So Quinn Michaels and Jason Goodman, this is a very important character. He went from one state to the other, possibly NY to CA, to meet Quinn Michaels while he was allegedly at a hospital after he had a severe lung infection. While he was on the mend, this is the key phrase they used to get some sympathy for Quinn Michaels. Then he became completely an MK Ultra puppet. He started hammering those Tibetan bowls and making sounds, and he created his own AI program called Indra or something like that. He was running a 24-hour YouTube channel to make money.
I've never even heard of Quinn Michaels myself.
Yeah, this is a very important character. This is the place where...
But Jason Goodman was trying to help him, or was helping him, propping him up?
He was probably just making his money. He was just a documentary maker.
Okay, gotcha.
He's a good filmmaker, no doubt about that. He was doing interviews or tried to keep the movement going, but he was not claiming to know anything.
Gotcha, because I covered a little bit of Jason Goodman when it came to the Trump assassination stuff.
It's okay. It's fine, right?
Sure.
So Thiel was solidly behind the Q operation. This is what they said. And touted to be a small time with VFX and all that. And George Webb is who also goes by the alter ego moniker Dave Acton, because nobody has ever seen Dave Acton, and he sounds exactly like George Webb. This is where my tendrils come up, and when I start saying David Windmiller and 107, you would never see both of them together in the same room, ever.
Right.
So some people claim that 107 wears a prosthetic for his pot belly, so that's not real either. But they are almost the same height, 5'10", 5'11". David Windmiller tells himself what height he is and how many pounds he weighs and stuff like that. He's a 92nd degree Mason, And then 107
92nd?
92nd degree Mason. There
How
are
high did it go?
93 or 94 degrees totally, according to him.
According to him.
And most of the presidents are left-handers, and he's ambidextrous. He could write with both hands. He actually proves that on a board in one of his interviews, which is a 9-hour interview. Okay, very intelligent person, very genius material, high IQ. 107 also is high IQ. There's no doubt about that. But it's not being used for the right things. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So the different stages of the Q movement, we already talked about the CBTS.
So you want to wrap up here from this because we kind of came full circle because
we
did, but we only touched on that. Is that before Q was posting as Q, or the Q boards are officially the ones that we see now, it was the CBTS, the calm before the storm, on Reddit.
Correct. And then it moved to 4chan, where only one guy was posting as a prophet, or the super sleuth, under the moniker of Q, possibly borrowed from James Bond movies or Star Trek, the TV show, or the group of Italian and Vietnamese writers of fictional stories of the protagonist named Q. Wu Ming writers. That's what their name was. So there's the Book of Q, 54, and some others. And then
the Book of Q being Quell in German.
Quell, Gospel. Yeah, I know. I know about that too. Yeah. Quetzalcoatl of the Mexican Mayan culture and all those things.
Okay.
Then one particular night after Christmas of 2017, there was an infighting going on between the Q followers, the Bible thumpers, or the Christians, as they would say, and those that were completely Jewish faith, Mossad's planted groups, not slanted, split into two, and the Q poster got extremely pissed with them and deleted all of his posts from the poll board and then he renamed as Patriots Fight. Okay?
Right.
And then this is a significant move, real versus unreal.
And anybody that was actually at the boards at that time.
I was there.
Yes. I'm just talking to the audience that might be listening and the people that are going to come across this video for whatever reason. Other people might be able to verify this. I'm not bringing anybody else on. It took me a while to even allow JRM to come on, so don't expect. I'm not bringing people onto my show. I'm only going to talk to JRM, but you can put your stuff in the comments and various ways, Telegram chat. We'll see what happens after this video gets released. But there's going to be people that know about these names and know these things, and if we're searching for truth, we need to have more clarification about what was going on here, because this Q thing is ramping up again with this next term of Trump. And could go on for how many more years?
Correct.
Before it finally just kind of dies out slowly as the grift dries up. And I'm just trying to stop people from
getting grift. Yeah.
I came out of the cult, and it was one of the most painful things I've gone through as far as psychological, spiritual, and emotional.
Of course.
It's going to be horrifying for people to go all these years believing this stuff. And then finally it just all fall apart and you never have any closure. Let's start the conversation now, and we're going to get tons of hate for this, but whatever. It's like we got to stop this nonsense that's going on out here on social media.
Sure. So this is a significant move, and then what happens? We have kept Israel for the end.
Right. Save Israel for last.
Only one time. After that, they never spoke about it.
And I found that with a lot of the Q posts that the white hats was only 2 times ever talked about on the boards. Save Israel for last 1 time. Is that what you're saying? And it's these things have been magnified to such degrees, like grab your popcorn or stuff like that.
Exactly.
And they weren't even talked about that much, but certain people for their own purposes blew those up, and it's become like the messages of the Q movement.
I know. And many Q-tards are still angry with this one. I don't like that term. Somebody else gave it to me, but
I think it's funny.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't like the word retard,
I don't care for that word either.
Yeah.
But
It's painful to say that to anybody, but it's okay. In this case, we can say that Q guy never returned to address this matter. 4 years of running this operation. The Bremerton Group, WA, is since Admiral Rogers lived there, so did Pamphlet Anon. And see there?
Yeah.
That's why they thought Admiral Rogers might be the original Q. Some
Admiral Rogers is one of the big names in the Q movement.
Yeah, but when somebody confronted 107 for not telling the truth up front and saying, I'm not John F. Kennedy Jr. And then he said, some people even thought that I was Admiral Rogers because our voices were similar, but I'm not him either. So, they have their own ways of getting out of the, wriggle out of the situation. So the Yelm Tacoma Washington group is the one which belongs to Michael James Riconosciuto because he lived there for many years. The 35,000-year-old Lemurian channeler from Ramtha School of Enlightenment.
Yeah.
She suddenly claimed one night at her gathering of the cult she runs in Yelm, Q is divine intel. We must listen to Q and follow what he has to say. This confirmed for me that one of the main hands in the Q operation was MJR. And I called up my mentor or whoever and around then and told her about the entire thing. And she confirmed that MJR has done similar things in the Aryan Nation cult before, pushing FBI Director Gunderson into a similar rabbit hole. And MJR used to always proudly use the terms puppet masters. What is the other one? The wizards and
White
warlocks.
Rabbit.
Yeah, rabbit hole and labyrinthine rabbit hole. And then
Alice in Wonderland, man.
Yeah. So then what happened here?
Yeah, you could go on this whole thing on and on, Gerald.
I know.
We need to find a good breaking point though, so we can.
This is where it changed. See there?
Wyoming, John Perry Barlow, who we were pointing out on the board earlier, JP Barlow, Kanye West, and another guy named John. Some Anons got into their text messaging and posted those in the Q poll board, and thus began the stories that Kanye West is involved in the expose too. This is why much of the Q drop started to include the Illuminati insider material, including Fritz Springmeier's book about the 13 bloodline families, the Owl people, the
Y-DNA group of the elite, haplocode, etc.
Wow.
Also had an extensive Hugh Hefner string of events. Then 0 Hour, Brian, all these people, Montegraph, Titus Frost, DeFongo, Thomas Schoenberger, Douglas Gabriel. This Douglas Gabriel was connected with Thomas Paine of the Gateway Pundits somehow.
Interesting.
They were all friends. And Montegraph is a very interesting character. He exposed these rats from the beginning, came across as poopy, so people didn't take him too seriously.
So he had that was his username or what?
No, people started calling him names like that. Montegraph was his username. Then think BLM. He was saying that Clinton Foundation is connected, and Q Linton is actually Q, right? So we're watching. All these people they brought. Then Corsi became the Trojan horse from Alex Jones's gang.
Okay.
He became the master decoder. Justice Scalia was killed in a boy club. This was his spin. Nobody knew about these things. There was no truth in it.
There was no truth in that.
No, absolutely not.
These are all conspiracy made up. Yes.
Yeah, by Corsi.
Okay. Let's go ahead and stop sharing the screen because we could go on and on with this. Like I said, just a few things to wrap this video up then.
Go ahead.
Why do you think that even if it was MJR, why on the very first post is he talking about Gitmo or Guantanamo Bay when when HRC would never get taken somewhere like that? Why do you think there was like that kind of, as we just pointed out there, just made up complete bullshit?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, like Alex Jones does, right? There has to be some kind of shock jock element, COINTELPRO element for waking up the masses to something. It has to be something so big and so fantastical, like the chart I showed with that woman who was the first person who interviewed Vincent Fusca. If you give people that magnanimous a thing or large a thing, enormous a thing, the David versus Goliath kind of story, they get sucked into it easily. Even intelligent people fall for it.
Do you think it was only solely for the purpose of making money, or do you think the MJR actually wanted to do something that would wake up the masses?
He really meant the second. He really means to awaken the people, and because he has gone through the incarceration of jail for 20 years because of exposing the Gambino family. Then finally, when one of the Q followers went and killed Francisco Frankie Boy Cali, gunned him down. So Michael James Riconosciuto's revenge is over.
Right.
And Edwin Meese has been buried. Edwin Meese was honored by Trump, but he was also buried. He's dead. Most of the people are gone. Poppy Bush is gone. Clintons are rotting right now. They are looking very bad if you look at their faces.
Right.
Biden's are gone. Now, it's only Obama who's still there. But Michael James Riconosciuto probably never was hurt by Obama directly. Obama was much later, like 2008 to 2015, right? So his term was in no way consequential for Michael James Riconosciuto. But if it was not at all Michael James Riconosciuto, then whoever it is probably connected to Matt Pottinger, who was the Trojan horse in Trump administration for the Flynn Group. There was another guy named Paul Batchelor.
Yeah, they just factions that don't like each other, huh?
Yeah. So the interesting part of that part of the story, Pottinger's wife was working in Wuhan. The T cells supposed makes sense. So somebody was trying to tell the world there is a pandemic coming, which is going to attack your T cells, but we cannot talk about it because it's classified. But we will give you hints. It's possible. I'm just saying that. Okay. MJR was like that. He would not tell the entire truth ever to anybody. Even in the last circle book, you will read plenty of things that go somewhere and then it stops. You would never follow through with the thread and say, okay, this has made some sense to me, right?
Right.
Probably that's where it should end, but we'll continue with the discussion, but you can ask me anything else if you have to.
I'll have just a couple more follow-up just to have a little bit of closure on these. Why do you think that Trump plays into this? Why do you think that he continues to do air cues? We've talked about this, but I don't think it was on the recording. Why do you think that he makes the air cues and doesn't denounce it?
I'll tell you, I heard this on the radio, KP, or whatever, KFI, AM 640. There's a famous duo show called John and Ken. Now, Ken has retired and John still continues to have a show.
Yeah.
It's a guy named John Cobalt. He once said this thing that Trump somehow has created this mesmerism technique, based reality TV show extended into his real life as a politician. Trump was never a politician, that's for sure. But he was getting buried in the bankruptcies and he was losing money rapidly. That's when people like Adelson and Mercer probably got involved with him. Then Peter Thiel also got involved with him, and they wanted to put forth a candidate who will take care of the billionaires. It's obvious that Trump is going to support the billionaires. You like it or not, he's helping the billionaires in one way or the other. He may be helping in the trickle down for the middle class as well. But however, I think he's using the data traffic for his own advantage, nothing else.
It's made him into a hero, man, and Trump loves flattery.
There is no confirmation that Hillary Clinton will ever go to jail. There's no confirmation that Obama will ever get sued, or he's well protected by the military. There is a vast majority or faction of the military who are still supporting Obama.
Sure.
That's very true. Biden, they don't care. He's already a robot.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one, because I've just been covering some of these guys that are these Q decoders, or they see 17s and 107s everywhere.
Yeah.
Why do you think I have my own thing? I'll just make the statement and let you elaborate on it. But you see these in the news, whether it's writing or on news stations where they report something. It was 17 seconds. It was 17 minutes.
Yeah.
It was 17 people dead. I think, because people always ask, and these guys are always posing to their people that follow them, how is it mathematically possible that all these 17s would be here? And in their mind, the good guys are telling them that the plan's still going forward. I'm telling right here is my opinion, is that the CIA is feeding you guys these things.
Or simple logic, Hollywood, right? They made TV shows like 24, X-Files, the Blacklist, or Homeland. There are references to Q and 17 much before Q came into the 4chan board. There are hundreds of references to 17 by David Duchovny or by Chris Carter or by Jack Bauer of 24. Actually, one of his clearance codes he mentions in the pilot episode or the second episode My clearance code is Q17, Q22.
Right. But I'm saying, like, in current modern times right now, the news stories that are coming out, like the Cybertruck thing, I've seen them pointing at it. They are putting like 17s and stuff in the news, I'm saying, on purpose, so that these freaking conspiracy theorists or Q decoders will go wild with them.
Well, eventually they will all be proven wrong because it's not that simple. If it was military in any way, military would never want to use a third-party CHAN board for their operation.
And that's what I've said too. Like, why would a high-end military
It
operation
would it would never happen that way.
would never happen, right? Like that
No.
would be an unprofessional,
No.
by just terminology, an unprofessional way to disseminate true information or purposeful, meaningful information. It was just like there's other people that have gone on to like IngersollLockwood.com or whatever it was, trying to say that's the new. It's like,
oh man, yeah.
I can't believe anybody falls for this stuff, because the real military and intelligence operation would never disseminate information like I believed it. Now remember, I believed this stuff for a time.
Yeah.
But as I critically thought and found out this stuff was fraudulent and started to actually use my reasoning and just common sense, come on, people.
There was this guy, Will, from ahijackedlife.com, that blog site. He was the big decoder every day. He was a very honest guy. Was to do yoga, was a spiritual guy, long hair and all those things. He lived somewhere in Minnesota or somewhere there. I even communicated with him. He believed that Dan Scavino is posting SQ Junior.
Yeah.
He believed that. And I couldn't refute it. I couldn't prove my point. And I said, I think it is MJR. I think it's Martin, Bosley or somebody, or Marty Bailey or somebody else, or even Pamphlet Anon. But it's not somebody like Dan Scavino, who is 24/7 with Trump. He can't possibly be doing that.
Right.
But they all can allude to the fact that they were giving hints about it. So they were all acknowledging that, yeah, these are people who are supporting Trump blindly. Most of them are people who have no clue how politics actually works.
Sure.
There's always a saying in journalism also. There's one story for ourselves and one for the public. That's how politics works. And there's no permanent enemy or friend in politics. It keeps changing.
Right.
This is the biggest problem that people have cognitive dissonance about, the Republican versus Democrat nonsense. I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump again if there's going to be a Mike Johnson speaker for 4 more years, because that guy is going to send all the money to Ukraine or to Israel instead of fixing our problems, as Trump claimed that we have to first fix our problems. Where's that?
Yeah.
Let's see that happen, right?
And if these things do not happen, that's what I'll be calling out on my show, man. I'm so tired of it. And it's built up to this big crescendo of now it's going to happen. And all these Q people are saying now it's going to happen. They think all these mass arrests eventually are going to happen while Trump is coming back to office.
That mass arrest nonsense was started by Benjamin Fulford, and with some Chodo Dion, some Japanese guy, Romanov guy, and some Italian guy, insider from Vatican, and David Wilcock and Carrie Cassidy and others. Then one day, David Wilcock is crying like a girl on Carrie Cassidy's show. These people can do anything to get away with those numbers. They get money, they get their YouTube subscribers and all that nonsense. And then
and there's so many people that are grifting off this movement and these sayings or these ideas. If they veer away from Q, they're still talking about how Trump is going to, take out all this cabal, deep state, drain the swamp BS that's been going on. I have hope that there's still going to be some good things that are about to come, because they showed us bad cop in Biden and now good cop comes in, but it'll be nothing like what they've sold. And therefore I'm going to call it as I see it and call the bullshit out, because I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
But JRM, this has been
awesome. Great, man. It was awesome talking with you.
Yeah. So, we'll see how we get attacked for this one, and then adjust accordingly, and then into whenever we do the second one.